Hey guys, Captain Alex Mason here, and we're going to do Sergeant Gordon Boulton of the Argyll Highlanders of Canada for the veteran interview.
When we formed us up to drive on to Falaise,
Argyll from Sutherland Highlanders, my bad.
Had the armor unit up front, including the British Churchill tanks. They brought those in, and they lined us up all 10 abreast. The tanks, and the Churchill tanks had flamethrowers with them. They pulled a tank behind it, an armored tank behind holding the fluid, and the line ran through the tank, and they shot the fluid out the front end about anywhere from 150 to 200 yards with fluid. It would burn and just burn everything in front of them. And behind that were the Sherman tanks. And then after that, the Bren gun carriers, which were a British Canadian unit, the full-track armored vehicle, open on top. But and then behind that came the soft skins, and we all rode. We were, in fact, I was in scout platoon. We weren't necessary to be up front. We were in the back, riding in a soft skin vehicle, as the rest of the division was. The rest of the Argylls were anyway, and. So we rode in these vehicles and went right across country, about 20-25 miles, and just, I don't know, it was just hilarious to see this thing all lined up moving. And it was like a Wild West show already. The fellows were shooting the guns off and yelling and screaming and having a ball. In the meantime, up front they were burning up the Germans as they went with these tanks and just swept right across country. It was really a sight to behold that I would probably never see again, and never would. But it was really worthwhile to see. The regular German soldier was just like anybody else, and they were just guys. I mean, they were easy to get along with, and some of them were happy to get captured, you know. But not the SS. The German soldiers themselves, they were frightened of the SS themselves, okay?
The Waffen SS.
Sometimes if they were told not to retreat, they had the SS behind them to make sure they didn't retreat, you know? And they shoot their own men. And this P-38 that I took off this officer, we were on a sweep, and I was about to walk up. We were stationed over maybe 50 or 75 yards apart. And I came across this walkway up, the driveway up into the barn, and I was going to go up into there, see if there's anybody up there. And all of a sudden, a person yelled from the ditch, he said, "Don't go up there, you better come down here with me." Spoke in very broken English, and I jumped in the ditch with him. And he was a veterinarian, and he was educated in England. And thusly broken English, but I took his gun from him, and he said, "There are 3 SS in that barn, and they'll kill me just as quick as they'll kill you." So I fired a couple of shots off to get the other guys to come around, and we got the 3 SS out of there. One of the guys got up and threw a grenade and got them out. Didn't hit anybody, but they got them out. In another case, the next day we were out doing another sweep. We ran across a whole platoon of SS, and we had a little battle fight with them, killed 2 of them before they gave up. And but they were miserable. They were just really, really, really bad. I mean, they were bad to deal with, you know. Not friendly, not anything, just really bad. At the Falaise Gap, when the Germans were trying to break through, that was the worst scene I've ever seen or ever want to see ever. The Germans kept trying to push out, and they kept just mowing them down, and the Germans used a lot of horses. And the horses were piled up, and the bodies were piled up, and they just kept trying to break out. That was a really horrendous experience. We were just scattered along an area. In fact, where we were, the Germans from the battle before were still laying there, you know. So we were just kind of. It was at night, and we were around a farmyard actually. And in fact, later on, when the Germans had stopped them, and we were going back, and it was so dark that you couldn't see your hand in front of you almost. And I never will forget, and another fellow and I were heading back towards the barn, and we ran smack dab into a cow and scared the devil out of us because we didn't know there was a cow there, and we couldn't see it. That's how dark it was. That was unusual because always, usually at night, you'd see something, but that was a very dark night. But we got the word that to pull back, since they knew at some point in time they knew the Germans had quit. So the scout platoon got pretty well depleted by the time we got to Germany. From originally altogether maybe 30 guys, it wound up being about 10 by the time we got to Germany. The depletion got pretty heavy. I've often said that I'd never do that again, never volunteer again. But I wouldn't trade my experience for anything I've ever had, anything I've ever done. I think those 5 years I spent in the Army taught me more than I could have ever learned in any kind of schooling operation.
Alright, so I'm going to explain a little bit of the Waffen-SS thing. Some of the common they were basically kind of like the commissaires of the Red Army, which back in the battles of Stalingrad, there would be a quote where it would be a direct order from then leader Joseph Stalin, not one step back, because if you were retreating, you'd automatically get killed for being a traitor. And the Waffen-SS were kind of like that. They weren't always like that. They were actually a lot worse. And Waffen-SS, now some of their clothing they wear, like, I don't know if it's common, but a lot of people, when they see the death's head and the very dark black, like charcoal black, or maybe even darker than black, like obsidian black, let's just say that, uniforms, that's a type of Waffen-SS member, but he's technically not a soldier. He's more of like the Gestapo, which is basically Hitler's secret police force or what. And before the Waffen-SS was around, there was a group known as the SR, and every last member was killed by the Gestapo members in the SS because Hitler, at that point, just before the war started, was paranoid, as he was during the entire war, that these people were going to kill him. And that's why the SS was created. Also, if you guys remember from World at War, the Lieutenant General Heinrich Emsel, he was a Waffen-SS member. And no, I think that's just about it. Waffen-SS, a lot of members from the Waffen-SS, like regular Waffen-SS soldiers, they were involved in a thing called Blitzkrieg, which translated in English from German is the Lightning War. And if you guys notice, if you look closely at some of the Nazi zombies in some of the World at War and Kenoder Toten maps, you'll notice that they have double lightning bolts. That's the symbol for Blitzkrieg, and basically, I'm not sure if I'm telling the truth on this one or not. I kind of need to do a little more research on this one. If you were the double lightning bolts, it means that you were involved in the Blitzkrieg during the war. Like you were some of the first Nazi soldiers to invade, basically. I'm not sure. That's just a hunch. But anyway, I'll get working on the credits. I just need to remember where I started. I know it was like, 10 minutes and 7 seconds, so I gotta wait a whole bunch of that and then finish where I left off from there because the video disconnected. I'll see you guys later.